What is the most embarrassing belief you used to have? Because of the way my dad explained recycling to me when I was 3, for the longest time I thought it was like a trading system. I lived in China at the time, so the only recycling bin I ever saw was a big one at my school. I remember the school announcing its installation, which then prompted me to ask my dad what it was. He explained it as a special box where you put things, and then someone else takes it and turns it into someone new. I thought that the something new was something I got to have. I remember my dad putting newspaper in the recycling, and me checking the bin day after day for the something new. As a kid I believed garbage and litter caused tornadoes. Not really sure why, but when I saw a plastic wrapper on the ground I'd pick it up and smugly say, "No tornadoes happening today." I no longer believe this to be true. You fool! By stopping what you were doing you caused all the latest meteorological disasters. Now you know why there were multiple record-breaking hurricanes this year. When little Timmy bought a snack to masticate and munch, he chewed his way along the pack, and ate the rest for lunch. And when he'd had his fill and fed on every final thing, he sighed aloud and shook his head at all the packaging. But Timmy didn't care at all for what he dropped outside. He let it go and watched it fall. And Timmy fucking died. I'm the youngest person on my team at a pretty big corporate office, so I get justly shit on all the time due to my naivety. We had a conversation on gross-sounding foods that are actually delicious. Like Jell-O being cow bones, ice cream having seaweed in it, etc. At 25 years old I blurted out, "Oh, and gravy being turkey blood." So gross, but pretty delicious. The entire table just stopped eating, looked, and laughed. My dad convinced me they slit the bird's throat and juiced it to make gravy. Edit. Holy crap. I didn't expect this comment to get so much attention. I'm glad I didn't tell the story of how my dad convinced me I would forever have Arnie Boob at age 12. He's a fun character. And yes, I know a sausage isn't a type of animal. White people are superior to other races in every way. I remember being obese, covered in acne, and Anderson, rude, with few friends. Thinking I was better than a black kid. My pops was the typical hardcore redneck racist type, and that kind of mentality really is taught through generations. I have grown up and changed so much as a person since, and my daddy is changing little by little too. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Also, I am a woman. Lol. Oh, you can wear a pad and that was your period. My cousin and I knew women got periods but weren't sure what they were, just that we would get one eventually. We had just gotten training bras, so one day we figured we would go ahead and get started with our periods. We put a wads of TP in our underwear and basically said we were women because we had our periods. TP fell out of my pants a few times while out and about. That once you get your period you'll bleed every day for the rest of your life. I don't know how I misunderstood sex ed that badly, but boy am I glad I was wrong. I believed the same thing for the longest time. My parents went the route of getting me a book around the time I hit puberty, and I freaked out halfway through reading the chapter about periods. Missed some very important details and was too scared to go back and finish it. Yuck, I hid the book under my mattress for several months. You know how we say that hairs have roots? Well, When I was kid I thought that it was similar to a plant. I would pluck a hair out and then try to plant it somewhere else, usually on my fingertip. I would do my best to try and keep the hair in place so the root would set and the hair would grow there. I did this for months before I found out that it didn't really work that way. Wow, that's an interesting strategy, if you can ingrain it in a young kid's mind and keep them gullible about it through their early teens. As someone who has smoked cigs/dipped to the point where nicotine no longer gave me a buzz, I am just going to be honest with them. It starts off as an okay at best buzz, but quickly turns into something that you just sink money into and at a particular point does nothing for you. Thankfully I reached this realization before I became hooked. Switched to chewing almost a pack of gum a day for about a month and bingo bango, never looked back. I took oral sex a bit too literally, as in talking sex. I thought it was like phone sex or just saying sexy stuff. Lol, I thought this as well. Believed oral sex was people having a direct conversation about sex, as in, I would enjoy having sex with you. Would you like that? Yes, that would be fine. If we decided to have sex together we could kiss on the lips and then you could put your penis in my vagina. Well, that sounds nice. We should try that sometime. Would it be okay if we kissed on the lips multiple times because kissing is pleasant and your lips look soft? I pictured people politely thanking each other for the conversation, shaking hands, and cheerfully parting ways after having the conversation. I assumed this was how adults decided whether or not they would have actual sex together at some point in the future. I blame Monty Python, because I came to this odd conclusion after watching Holy Grail and seeing the scene where Sir Galahad gets rescued from peril. I don't think I'd ever heard of oral sex before that. When we went out backpack camping when I was like 5, my dad went and pooped, and just pooping outside was foreign to me, so I asked him about it. He said something along the lines of, oh yeah, everyone poops outside, it's fine. People have been doing it for as long as we've existed, you just bury it when you're done. I took it kind of wrong, and once we were back home I went out and pooped in the woods for a good 2 weeks by the time he figured out what was going on. I was 5 and he worded it oddly. I'm blaming him. I thought I was white. I am in fact the son of immigrants from India/Pakistan, but I thought there were only white people and black people. I had no idea that brown people were a thing, despite being one. I wasn't dark enough to be black, so clearly I was white. The best part was how I learned the truth. There was a large gathering of family and friends at my grandparents' house and the news was on in the background. I don't remember what was said on the news, but evidently it was something negative pertaining to race. It prompted me to dramatically wipe the sweat from my brow and loudly declare, boy, am I glad I'm white. There was silence in the room as everyone looked at me and then erupted with laughter. My mom explained some things to me that day. Breaking my graham cracker into 1/4 pieces gave me more cracker. I wouldn't tell my mom so she didn't take the extras away. Semi-related, when I eat toast or a sandwich, I find I feel more full when I've cut it into halves/quarters versus eating the entire thing whole. Despite the total food consumed having remained the same or been reduced due to crumb loss during the cutting process. Just a weird quirk of human psychology, I guess. Up until at least 9 I thought you could get pregnant from exchanging saliva. I got worried when we were on a trip and my mom was going to use my dad's toothbrush while on a trip because we forgot hers at home. Gross in retrospect, I know, because I was afraid she'd have another baby. They really hated each other. They were never married. I was an accident. I understood all those complex concepts and knew another baby between them would be bad, but was convinced sharing a toothbrush would get her pregnant. Strange how I could understand some complexities but not others. Oh well. Man, I remember back in the mid-80s to early 90s I was taught, and believed for longer than I care to admit, that certain bands were satanic and would have secret messages playing backwards in their music, inspired by Satan and his demons. Of course I eventually realized, that was stupid, and KISS doesn't stand for Knights in Satan's Service, Led Zeppelin didn't have Stairway to Heaven composed via demonic influence, and AC/DC wasn't for Antichrist/Devil Child. But still, I cringe to this day. Edit, spelling. I didn't know that hair grew back new strands. I thought only the existing strands would continue to grow. So when I brushed my hair I would cry in my room about the hair strands in my brush and thought I was going bald, and I hid the strands. Finally I told my mom and cried about it, and she told me that hair grows back and that everyone sheds hairs and new ones replace it, but I thought she just told me that to make me feel better, so I still didn't stop crying till she told me if I do go bald she'd get me a wig. Oh God, I just remembered there was more to it. I knew that people with cancer sometimes their hair fell out, but I didn't know why. So I thought because my hair was falling out that I had cancer. It still took a few years to tell my parents though, because I was scared and sad. That if you moved the earth 1 centimeter closer or farther from the sun that life would not survive. I think there's a little more leeway. My high school earth science teacher told us that. He was trying to say that aliens probably couldn't exist anywhere in the universe because it was extremely unlikely that a planet would have the same perfect conditions that Earth had. He was also really into Jesus and old. If I watched a TV show for 8+ years while I am 7, police will come. They don't. Apparently they don't. That's what they want you to think. They are right behind why. Memory erasing tech. Classic Neo-police maneuvering for children. You won't even realize the 32 life sentences you've been serving until you're in your 40s or 50s. Some say when a man in a nice suit and tie comes to visit you in the early hours of the morning after the rain, he reminds you of someone you've seen from a distance as a child, and it becomes clearer as he begins to speak. It is done. But then you quickly forget and ask the man what he needs, but he just shrugs and walks away, and instead of your acquittal you just remember a strange man, ageless as he seemed in your lost memories, now walking off in such a strange, sad way. You will hear of this man many times, but only in passing, and from similar aged people. He won't do anything other than shrug or nod and then walk off. All because you didn't follow the fucking rules. That the cartoon characters lived in the TV. I thought that even for shows that weren't cartoons. But I knew that they couldn't all be in the TV at once, so I decided that they must live in the VHS tapes and only worked in the TV, and that every time I watched a show the people who live in the VHS would somehow get from the VHS machine to the television and put on a live performance for me. That a G-spot was just somewhere that felt good to be touched or kissed. Like I believed my neck was my G-spot until I was like 17. I too thought it was an arbitrary spot on the body, unique to each person. Why else was there so much said about needing to find it? If it were in the same location for everyone, that surely wouldn't make sense. Being a child pre-internet caused many a misunderstanding. In third grade, I thought that civilization had really only started after 1900. Before that was cavemen and dinosaurs. Remember in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. I thought it was 1942. I also thought the Revolutionary War was the Civil War. I was an idiot. Edit, remembered another similar story. One time visiting my cousin, again, I was in third grade, I saw him playing a Wii game called World War III, and I thought it was a real thing. As a kid I thought women got pregnant when they were older. I never questioned the nature of it. I remember arguing with my mom that men wouldn't survive as a species without women, but women could survive without men. She just laughed and said we did need them. I thought she mean because they were stronger or something. Yup, I was brilliant. That every time I took a bite from a strawberry Pop-Tart I had to swallow twice or I would die. Not any of the other Pop-Tarts. Just the strawberry ones. I was very young. I remember one time I was sitting next to my dad in front of the fireplace while he was poking at the fire. I was eating a Pop-Tart. I thought we were gonna have a heartfelt conversation, because he turned to me and said, "You know." Followed by, "You can eat with your mouth closed." I looked down at my Pop-Tart, and immediately tried it. I didn't know that was a thing. That the pictures on the side of the old trucks were rented specifically because someone was moving to that state. Didn't realize they were random until I was probably 15. Or, "That's so sweet, and just happened to me too. My son's friend moved away last week, and he came home to ask me how they could stay in the same school if they were moving to Utah." I was perplexed, asked him why he thought so. He explained the truck in the drive. I had to give him the biggest hug ever. "Here's one for you, smile." My parents were very right-wing religious Protestant people, so I used to hold some of their beliefs. For a while I believed like they did about Judgment Day, when you have to stand before God and plays like a video of all the things you did in your life and you have to answer for them. Forget about grace or the absurdity of that or anything else. Imagine how long that would take. There are 8 billion alive people right now, probably 15 billion dead people. Can you imagine being in a line of 23 billion people so everyone can get their life played out? I can't even stand the DMV. 23 billion people. Fuck that. When I was a kid, one of my friends came over to visit. He showed me and my brother a pen that had a crucifix on it and told us if we touched it we would get superpowers. So we did, of course. Then he told us now that we had touched it we would turn into vampires. We were so freaked out. And when he left and my parents asked us why we were so freaked out, we told them about being vampires. I'll never forget the look they gave us. Like we were complete idiots. At the time I was very mad at them for not being sympathetic to our doomed plight. Looking back it's pretty funny. That pineapples grew on trees. And then the subsequent belief that they grew underground and the spike things were where the roots were. Took 27 years of life, and the last 2 of those living on Oahu lol, to finally learn the truth. even if I don't choose to believe it. I'm half Middle East, and so as a kid, all the weddings I went to had the bride and groom sitting in a raised, decorated loveseat thingy for several hours while music plays and guests dance or go up to congratulate them. When I eventually started wondering where babies come from, my kid brain decided that women get pregnant because they were sitting for so long during their weddings. If a woman wanted more kids later on, she'll just sit in her living room for several hours and she'll be pregnant again. Of course, this only happened to married women, so everyone else was safe if they were feeling lazy. When I was younger, I always wanted a pet chicken. I asked my mom, how do farmers incubate eggs without chickens? In actuality, I just asked, can chickens hatch without hens? She told me all about temperature and stuff like that. A few days after, my mother went to buy groceries, and when she came back I stole one of the eggs with the intent of hatching my very own pet chicken. Turns out market-bought eggs aren't fertilized. If it helps, lots of people have made this mistake through history, and is a contributing factor to the loss and rediscovery of the cure for scurvy. http://idlewords.com/2010/03/stot_and_scurvy.htm is worth reading, but TLDR, lemons prevent scurvy, limes don't. Sailors switched to limes because they were more available, and a bunch of people got scurvy even though they knew that vitamin C was the cure. In elementary school, I used to think my teachers lived at school and didn't have a life outside of it. I had this whole theory made up that they would roll up in the carpets to sleep and eat from the vending machines. I don't know if that's better or worse than mine. Until high school, I just never gave any thought to the concept that my teachers were people. They existed, in my mind, solely to teach, and I never gave any consideration to what they might do outside of the hours that they were teaching in school. This is particularly bad because my mother is a teacher. Women have more ribs than men. Something they taught in my Christian elementary school. Because God took one of Adam's ribs to make Eve, all women have more ribs than men. One of those weird proof of God things that I guess should go as proof against because it's a pretty obvious lie. I feel like being a granddad is when you get to pull all the long con shit your wife wouldn't let you pull when they were your kids. He's transcended dad joke level. He's at the granddad level now. For real though, grandparents are so much more chill than parents sometimes that it's unreal.